Junior, yeah.
I'll be.
Moving fast.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
so you were basically trying to stay ahead of the Russians
Yes, that
when
was
you
my
left
thought
Hungary.
when we left Hungary, yes. There's more details to this here, but
Oh,
not very interesting.
were you able to come across food, or were you able to take enough food, or?
Well,
I
no,
mean, you,
we just butchered the day before we left. And the supper was on the stove yet. And I came home from town. Mom sent me to town, to the city actually. Says, go and get this few dollars or bangos, they call it that. Get it off the bank so we have them at home. When I came to town there, a friend of ours and his family, they were moving out with horses and wagons. He says, Emmerich, what's the matter with you guys back there in Zurich? He says, the Russians broke across the river here and here, you know. They are here in no time. Well, what do? I went to the bank, went home and told the people where I came from Zurich, what happened, because nobody had a radio. We didn't know what was going on. So they already were prepared, which I was not. They were prepared. They just put their horses in front of their wagon and moving out. Here I was, had to throw everything on the wagon. My brother's wife asked me, can I go with you? Sure, he had 2 children.
really?
And he left, I think it was just getting dark at night.
You and your mom and your brother's wife and 2 children.
Yeah.
Of course, all the other families, they were family. They were guys, you know,
Mhm.
father and grandfather and so on. They were able to go together, but
So you had a lot of responsibility right there because the
That's
children
what
had to
they
be
can.
very young.
yeah.
18 months was the youngest.
He slept in the cornfields, did you?
Left in a corn, we tried to cover
Corn
up
stalks.
with corn stalks. I thought I'm going to get warm. It was the worst thing to do, to cover up out in the field in December with corn stalks.
They were wet, they were moist.
Moist, yeah.
Had snowed and so.
The guy didn't have not much rain.
No, you didn't have much experience.
Right, that's what.
You had
But
plenty of
it didn't
brains.
take long. It didn't take long. I threw them corn stalks off. And
Well, see, then you did have brains.
Yes. Just had to have the experience.
Yeah, just had to have the learning
Right.
method taught to you.
didn't have no hay for the horses.
Where
I
did
had
you
to suit.
abandon your horses then?
Huh?
Where did you abandon your horses?
That was another 2 days from there, from here then.
Hmm.
A German officer came in and says, a commotion of people, you know. Several wagon trains from different sections from the country.
Oh, I imagine.
And he must have been in charge, or must have thinking that I got to get these people out of the way.
Yeah.
I get
There's
them
more
tanks
going
here
on.
coming, or whatever he
Yeah.
had coming. I got the, and he had some boxcars handy, and we put everything in boxcars. Just threw them in there. I don't know how people found that stuff afterwards. But anyway, we found a lot of stuff. I don't think we lost anything.
You were going to say something about your suitcase. You feel that.
Suitcase, sausage was made the day before.
Okay.
I put all the sausage that was in the casings in a suitcase. And I lived off of that for 2 or 3 weeks.
That's
Well,
all that fresh
Mom
sausage.
said, this is what you're going to eat when this is gone. Well, I didn't worry about that.
Oh. Oh.
We did get some warm soup with something in it. I don't know what was in it when we were in camp in Germany already then.
Wasn't cucumber soup was the famous?
That was-
cucumbers with the seeds in there.
Oh,
That
yeah?
was the
That was
famous
when the
soups
German
in
was
camp.
cooking, yeah.
Really?
In camps. There was nothing there. So
Well, these camps you were in were just like a refugee camp.
yeah,
Basically,
but
yeah.
still, so many thousands or millions of people going
Just
through
going
from
through,
every country. From
Continually moving through.
yeah, they just couldn't come up with enough.
Oh, I'm sure not.
supplies.
And everything was destroyed. The infrastructure and
Right.
everything was
Yes.
totally upset and out of balance. And hmm.
Before I came to Pedic, I was on a farm in Bavaria. It was before and the Americans came through there. On that farm where I helped, we had some potatoes. I don't know, was it a ton and a half or was it 2 tons of raw potatoes that we fed with the hogs? They were in a barn piled against a wall and covered with straw to have them handy to boil them for the hogs.
Hmm.
And we was taking some potatoes to town because each farmer had to bring so much stuff for what an effort or food into town. And they brought a bunch of Russians past that wagon. I was riding in the back, and they all, when they seen that potatoes, it was not covered.
Attack.
They did rage for it. They attacked that wagon.
The Russian soldiers.
Prisoners. They were POWs.
Prisoners. Oh.
Okay.
They were POWs. And German soldiers or guards next to them with the bayonet sticking up. And the farmer says, hit him, hit the...
Hit him in the head.
I did hit
Those
one
prisoners.
guy. I never will forget that. The rest of my life I hit him. I had a piece of stick in my hand, but I didn't hit no more. I did hit one. But anyway, then they got put in that barn where the potatoes were. I don't know, it was the same ones I was talking about. I hit it. But anyway, when they left out, we found one potato from the 1.5 tons or 2 tons.
Really?
Yeah. And I did see what they got for food. They got a warm soup with maybe a hurley,
Oh, macaroni. Or
a
something.
macaroni swimming in there.
Mhm.
I'll be.
They were starved.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people were at that
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
I mean, if you turn this around and look at the German prisoners, they're the same situation.
Yeah, you bet. It was the same way for both
Yeah,
sides.
there were no
Lawless war.
convention, no what they call them, Swedes,
That's it.
Switzerland convention,
Oh, yeah.
Geneva Convention.
Geneva,
Geneva
yeah.
There was
Convention.
no
Yeah.
convention.
No, it didn't apply.
Mhm.
No. And before the Russians came, there were English prisoners there also. They could walk freely around.
Huh.
I could talk to him as good as I could. He could talk to me as good as he could.
They were
made some
prisoners of the
trade.
Germans then, right?
They were prisoners of the Germans, but they were English
Uh-huh.
prisoners, POWs in German hands.
Hmm.
And they had chocolate and cigarettes and
Yeah, they no doubt fared a little better than the Russians did.
Mhm.
all they was
More
craving for is a
respect.
little flour and be able to make a bread of some sort. He did make some trades there. He had some flour yet from Hungary, and Mom we traded for my benefit.
Hmm.
I could get the cigarettes.
Huh.
And then from there, when the Americans came, this was about 2 weeks later when this happened. 2 weeks later, the Americans came, and no incidents. They stayed overnight in that farmhouse. They were sleeping. They used it as their command post or whatever. And we had to sleep in another farmhouse. This was around the 27th of April.
Okay.
And then in sometime in middle of May, the proclamation came out. All foreigners in Germany come together here and here, and we went to a camp, and we was there in open areas, no cover. Stayed there 2 weeks. Then we went to another camp, barracks. We had a roof over our head. And we was there until February of 46. And February 2nd or 3rd, we went to southwest Germany by the Black Forest there into a smaller camp. And we got assigned some homes and apartments or a room. We got just 2 people. You got 1 room and a little stove in there.
Hmm.
I didn't jump it very much, but I don't think I left anything important out.
So at least it was peaceful where you were at when the power transferred from the Germans. It was
Yes,
it was Americans and not English that went through.
yes, it was
So
American.
you didn't have to go through a fight at that time.
No.
But that was still while the war was on.
This, what I'm talking about, the war was over. The
Okay.
war was over May the 8th, 1945. When the war was over, I was still at that farm. And in May, later in May, middle of May, proclamation came
Yeah,
out from
yeah.
the military government.
Yeah.
All foreigners, we have to sort this out here, you know.
Yeah.
Italians, Poles, Hungarian, whatever.
Mhm.
Czechoslovakia,
Czechoslovakia.
Romania,
You got to
Yugoslavia.
sort this out, so you got to go people back home where they can be counted. He was in that camp, and Potsdam came along. You know that I don't know what deal was made, but I think the Potsdam was later. They said if you Hungarians and if you Italians or Poles don't come home, you're going to lose your citizenship. And I had my mind made up. I wasn't going to go home, and as long as communism is there.
Yeah.
So did other hundred thousands of people.
Well, I would sure think
They
so.
stayed in Germany.
Yeah.
And was we met 48, got married in 50, and people, things were still crowded. Still crowded, so we decided we might go to either Australia, Argentine.
We, since my parents and the two of us without baby lived together, and by that time we had a nice, like what you call it, condominium.
A nice
Okay.
Nice
apartment.
apartment, yeah. So we thought as a family we can go, my parents and two of us. And Dad and Emmett was at work, so Dad filled out the papers and I signed our papers and our name. And anyway, we thought we could go together. Well, it didn't work out that way. Then we tried United States, and there we had a chance to come over. And,
We had luck.
yeah, we had luck then, and of course, it went out alphabetical order, each country. They took so many thousands of people to let them come over.
I see.
It went by alphabetical order. Well, we're A, and my maiden name was Kreling with a K. By the time we were able to come over, we were still hoping my parents would follow us.
Yeah.
By the time the K came, the turn came for that, the quota was filled.
Ooh.
So we were here and my parents were there. My brother still lived there too then. But that's when there came a lot of tears.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had a sponsor out in Loveland, Colorado.
Really?
Church, the Lutheran Church sponsored us
No
out there.
kidding.
Yeah, and so we lived there from, when did we get there? May the 19th.
We came to Europe, to New York.
Yeah, to New
19th.
York.
And then we had 3 days, I think, in the train to
Mhm.
Loveland.
Yeah.
Then we stayed in Loveland until 1953, June.
Yeah. We came over, I don't know if you told Steve, we came over on a military boat.
Okay.
Came back empty.
They
Taking
took-
troops over.
I see.
And the church made arrangements with the government. So they had to pay some for our,
Food.
yeah,
Yeah.
and which we had to pay back then after we
I'll be.
were over here and had a job. But that's how we came then to Ellis Island
Oh,
with that
big.
boat. They brought us in with the barge, and that's when everybody got. Then we got sorted out again. Okay, this group goes to Texas, and then this
Wow.
one to Colorado, and we had our little name tags on, and they put us on the trains.
But we were already designed. I mean,
Yeah, we
That's
were.
the-
Oh yeah,
that's
but they
the-
had our list. They had the
Yeah.
list. You know which state you're going to.
which go south, which go west.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so they put us on a train and to Colorado. Well,
Maybe you ought
you
to
know
fill
in
in.
English
Maybe you ought to fill in,
as much as now.
Steve, because there were a lot of programs established by the government in Washington. 150,000 from Poland. Then there was 100,000 Hungarians, Romanians, and I don't know what else. You know, there was bigger programs, and so many people came over, and they were destined either for New York or for the southern states. It depended where their sponsors was. Now, like our uncle was the same boat, her uncle, same boat to New York, where he actually should have went to Texas, because his former sponsor was in San Antonio.
I'll be.
But he came here because those programs were running down. So people who went south, they had to be filled in with the one that just go to the east coast. And then they went down with the train.
Hmm.
Yeah, we were hungry then too. on that train, from New York to Colorado. Didn't know any English, couldn't even buy, we had $1.
Gee
But-
whiz.
But
We
we,
had-
couldn't,
We had $35.
we had $35.
Because
but
when we came to Ellis Island, the church gave us $35 for you to spend on the way out to
I'll
Loveland.
be.
But you were not allowed to bring any money over,
I
exchange
was not
any money.
allowed to make any
Were not
money
to
in
bring
my
any
pocket.
over.
Wow.
We had some
Uh-huh.
money, we sent it back, and I wish we had kept it, but
Yeah.
it was against the law.
Oh,
Before
to
we
bring
got
money.
shipped on a boat, we sent the money back to my parents from Bremerhaven.
Not to break the law.
Uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Huh.
So
But I broke the law anyway. I had $1 in my pocket.
but,
So what became of your parents then?
they could never come over.
They never made it
No,
over.
they never made it over. No. They came over for a visit, and first time I went back over then was in 1959. But then we had a 2-year-old little girl, and then the 9-year-old boy. And with those 2 kids, I went back in 1959 to see my parents first time, and it was not on a jet. It was an 18-hour flight from Chicago to
It's 4
Frankfurt.
engine, 4 engine.
4 engine, yeah, that came a year later. So, but then stayed there for 5 weeks. 'Cause
Wow.
I guess I had a breakdown when I was over there, and I just couldn't get out in it. It was a nervous breakdown. And so my dad wrote to Emmerich. You couldn't call then overseas. And then Emmerich came over too.
Really?
Yeah, and we came back together. My parents called the doctor for me. I was okay within a few days, but
I'll be.
and after that I wasn't as homesick anymore because the distance was not as great. See, 9
Okay.
days, I'd always thought 9 days on
Yeah.
that boat and being seasick all the time. Anyway, I will not see my parents. But then 18 hours was a big difference.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
the distance was not as great as it was before.
Well, I'll be.
Uh-huh.
But they never made it back over?
They came over to visit, but
Yeah.
not to live, no. We even hired a lawyer here to have them come over. Then they
Wow.
found this, Mom had DPs, we have to have a place here where we can enlist her in, and we are responsible to pay the bills, and so on. And then went to specialists and everything. She had pneumonia when she was young, and those were the scars they found. And anyway, there was just so many obstacles, and they could not come over. So
Wow.
we were just thankful that my brother was there, and they were not alone.
And things got better over there. too.
Yeah.
Yeah, kind
Yeah.
of better, yeah.
So your brother
Mhm.
stayed over there
He
too?
stayed over there. He married a girl from Germany, from that town, and they stayed over there.
And
yes.
he's still there?
They didn't. No, he passed away.
Oh, he's
And
passed
his
away.
wife too, yeah. But they wouldn't have come over. When they first got married, yeah, my sister-in-law said, "Oh yeah, we're going." And once they were married, she's not gonna.
She wasn't
she's
going to
not
leave.
gonna
huh?
leave her hometown, her home place, and, which was
Yeah.
for the best. And
Yeah.
that my parents were not alone,
Yeah.
even though we were alone. But look at us now. We
Yeah.
have family and friends, and
There's 3 of us when we came over, and now we are about 19 of us.
Wow.
when the families together, yeah.
Yeah, you prospered.
Yeah.
So what happened to your brother's children?
They stayed in Germany, and I don't know. We lost contact.
Did you? Lost
Lost
contact with
contact.
his wife and their 2 children.
Because they got
They went
altogether
another way. They
different
got
area.
separated
Mhm.
from us when we was going into these trains.
Okay.
With that German officer came, everybody going in boxcars. And they got into a boxcar where there was a stove in there for children,
I see.
mothers with children, so they had some heat. Where I was, there was no heat. It was just,
Should I make some coffee? Would you care for some coffee?
You don't have to make it just for me. And I don't want you to leave your spot here. This is
Okay.
too interesting either. So
Okay.
did you hear from her again though, or was that the
not
last you ever
personally. I
saw
had
her?
some relatives, nephews, and sisters in Germany. They had some contact with her.
Okay, so you know that her and the 2 kids made it through the war
Yes.
Mhm.
yeah.
okay, and wow. Did you ever hear where your brother went with the Hungarian army?
Stalingrad.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Stalingrad.
And that was the last you heard of him.
My dad was buried that day when his postcard came. It was dated for January 5th, 1943. And Dad's burial was 30th of January, 43. That's where
On
his
your mom's
postcard
birthday.
came.
And the postcard said,
I don't remember what
What the
the postcard said.
date?
I'm pretty sure,
It was from Stalingrad.
yeah, it was from Stalingrad.
Just the date.
That's where the Hungarian section was.
okay. It wasn't saying anything of his, it was just from him,
Yeah,
and that was the last you'd heard.
yes. My sisters, they tried to find out what it, you know, but that's about as most they could find out that he was there. And they went into, they gave up, I don't know what day it was, Hungarian commander got shot right under the white flag. Who is one more dead or more or less, you know.
Yeah,
So you don't know whether he was taken prisoner or before, or whether he
Or
died before that.
We don't know for sure.
Wow.
And there's millions of them.
There are. That's what's so sad. He's just one of so many that just disappeared off the face of the earth, basically.
you know, we had around my small, it was a farm community, the town I was born and raised in. But there were, you know, after a few days later, people went out, guys went out the edge of town to look for the bodies. There were Hungarian soldiers, there were Russian soldiers, there were German soldiers. My aunt who lived 3 houses farther back up, they lived at the edge too. But she was courageous. She went up right the day after the Russians moved through, went up in her orchard, and there were 2 German soldiers laying there. They were running, you could tell they were running, they got shot in the head. So she took their IDs, and then after the war was over, she sent them to their families.
Wonderful.
But what about the Russian soldiers?
Yeah.
What about the Hungarian soldiers? They laid there, a lot of them laid there till spring, and then the guys would take the wagons with straw on it, big long wagons with straw on it, and go out there and collect the bodies. And then they had them in the Russian soldiers in one grave, and the Germans and the Hungarians in separate graves. So you never know.
How many
Yeah.
mothers,
Mhm.
wives, children?
Yeah, cried for their loved ones, yeah. I'm waiting for them. So that's,
Wow.
yeah, there's always some nasty people. They found some of those dead bodies where the ring finger was cut
Sure.
off.
Really?
Took the rings. You don't know if it's another soldier or if it's people
Yeah.
from their town.
No way of knowing.
Their boots were taken off. You could tell sometimes after the war was over who got a soldier's boots. You know,
Mm.
they were walking around town and so on. But,
Yeah.
Poor country.
uh-huh.
Hmm.
Same thing happened probably on the other side.
Oh,
In
yeah,
Russia when the Germans, you know,
Yeah.
they didn't have any good boots either, the
Yeah.
Russians.
no.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
War is no good.
No, it's hell.
What is that?
And sometimes when people talk about the war and why do these people do this and do that, you're not in control when you're a civilian, when there is war going on. You just run for your life. You just
Yeah.
struggle and hope that you will live to the next
Yeah.
morning or the next hour. It's just not fair. Well, I'm getting used to it too, but I
I have,
sometimes
fr-
sit there crying because I know what these people go through.
I
It's
have a
just not
friend
fair.
who lives in Galesburg, a Hungarian, and when the Second World War was going through his city there, said they knocked on the doors at night time. They knocked on the doors opened up, it was the Russians, you know, they wanted to know if any Germans are there. He says no, and about an hour or 2 hours later, they knocked again. And it was Germans. They wanted to know if there were any Russians in the house. Said, knocked on the doors, we didn't know who was there.
Good grief.
It was a big battle at Czechoslovakia War, because it was a big city, and the Germans tried to defend it as much as they could. It was a swampy area. They couldn't operate their tanks very good because it lousy fuel. And the Russian commanders had made a promise that you guys take this here and you can do for 24 hours what you want to the Russians. They took it, but lost a lot of men, but they did a lot of damage to the women folks too.
Wow.
That drove them quite forward, that promise they can do whatever.
They were ruthless.
They were whatever. They were our allies, and you know, it was all right for them to do that.
But
I mean, when I say power.
Yeah. I've read where when they got into Germany, they were so hard on in Germany they were even worse if
yeah.
possible, and German fathers actually shot their wives and their kids and then themselves so they didn't have to face the ravages of the Russians.
Right.
It was easier for a man to shoot his wife and his children
Then stand there and
to watch.
Yeah. Like the minister who confirmed Emmerich in Budapest, his wife, he tried to defend his wife from the Russian soldiers. They shot him right there. They killed him because
Yeah.
Then another
they attacked
pastor
his
I got
wife.
acquainted with in Germany, in the Russian part, by Berlin there, he happened the same thing. He got shot, killed.
We had when the few days after Russia occupied my town, we were already going home in the daytime in our house, and there was a fire across the field from us. The house was burning down, and then found out afterwards they tried to shoot the owner of the house, the Russian soldiers did. But they was their headquarters. They stayed there overnight, and then turned out there was jealousy that the higher officer and his girlfriend were there, and then the guy who cleaned his boots, he had an affair with the girl, and so the officer shot the guy under him, and then
Wow.
lit the matters on fire, and then the house burned down. But if there wasn't some other Russian soldiers come and speak up, that owner of the house, the German guy, he would have been killed. And
Wow.
So,
So you just don't know what you're going to get caught up in, do you?
No, you don't.
Well, you're both lucky people.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
made it out.
Lucky
In
for-
1947, I went back into the Russian zone with legal papers out of the American zone to get some of the stuff that we left when we left there because the Russians was coming. Because we had horses when we unloaded in Hungary into the boxcars and went on to Czechoslovakia, to East Germany, to go back there. But when we left there, we could go only with what we could carry.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back, and as my luck wanted, I got locked up for 4.5 days because they said I was spying for the Americans, which I did live in the American zone. But they took all the papers away from me, all the money away from me, and the first night I spent in a basement with soft plaster on the wall and so many names scratched in there.
Really?
Going over the arch, Hunger Cellar Stalin. So there went a lot of people through that, and somebody got the idea that as bad it was, We didn't get nothing to eat. On the fourth day, we got black coffee.
Wow.
We was probably 100 people in